Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Our Kings. We're here, the legendary Brian Custer. Look, Brian, I watch all your stuff from the UK, mainly the boxing. I gotta say, like, I watch all your long sit-downs with the likes of a Gervonta Tank Davis and all the stars this side of the pond. So it's a pleasure for me to just chop it up with you for a little bit. So how you been anyway?
Been great, man. It's always good to be in Vegas. It's even better when you got a big fight. And look, I love that the PBC not only has a great main event, but if you look at it, all four of the fights are really good.
I have to say, from top to bottom, when you look at just Ramos Jr. against Rosario's been there, and I feel like it's that almost, is it going to be the changing of the guard? You look at Pitbull, Fierro, all Mexican sort of stare down. Figueroa, Fulton, the rematch at a different weight. It's interesting. I think sort of my heart saying Fulton, my head saying Figueroa, and then you go to the main event, and it's like, both these guys are entering the prime stages of their career. Benavidez with that huge reputation, and David Morel coming from that, that schooled Cuban background. Not as many fights in the pros as Benavidez, but well schooled. And this is a terrific fight. Let's start at the very top of this card. What a fight!
Yeah, it's going to be really good. I mean, the one thing I respect out of David Morel is this is a guy who's been calling for this fight for the past couple of years. There's not many people in the sport that calls out David Benavidez. Benavidez is generally the one calling people out, whether it's Canelo or whomever. But Morel has been the guy who's saying, I want to fight you. And now, here it took a little bit for the fight to percolate, but now we get it. And, Morel believes that because he hasn't been in many wars as Benavidez, and that brick left hand that he has, that could be the equalizer.
I look at this fight and it's one of them in boxing. I think we're coming into this era, and Floyd's got a lot to do with this, by the way. When he was coming through, obviously he marketed himself off being undefeated, the O and all this kind of stuff, and that was a great marketing tool. But I feel like these fighters, they are a rarity and they should be appreciated, but also we're entering into this era now where if you take a loss, it shouldn't matter as long as you're taking the right fights and the manner of the performance. You look at a guy like Ryan Garcia, he took an L against Gervonta Davis, he can still come back. No shame in losing to a guy like that. Errol Spence and Crawford. It's amazing the amount of times you see fighters get wrote off, and then I sort of look at after the fights and go, well, that's maybe why they're a bit more cautious, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think this fight right here, it should be such a good fight, and both can come back regardless.
Absolutely, and that's probably the one of the main reasons why I'm a big fan of David Benavidez. He wants nothing but the top.
Smoke.
And you look at who he doesn't duck anybody. He's been wanting Canelo, but yet if I don't get him, I got Demetrius Andrade. No one wanted to fight Demetrius Andrade at the time. He was like, bring him on. I'll take him out. And look, he got the stoppage there. He is a guy that wants to be great, and he wants his legacy and his record to reflect that. And then when you look at the competition that he's fought, you're like, whoa, that kid is a monster.
We mentioned there, obviously, he wants everybody. He's been calling for Canelo for years. Canelo, it looks like, is going to fight Bud Crawford, with Bud Crawford coming up multiple weight classes. Apparently no rehydration clause, which I'm sure is not down to Crawford. I'm sure that's Canelo saying, look, I'll fight you, but these are my rules, kind of thing. I want to ask you, if Terence Crawford pulls this off, where do you put him in terms of the plethora of talent and the legends of this game? Because he's already certified, probably a Hall of Famer in many people's eyes. He's in this game, he's done it all. But a victory over Canelo and having to climb them weight classes, where does that put him?
You would have to put him as, one of the greats. I don't know if people would probably say, well, I'm going to put him as one of the greatest in Mount Rushmore, only for the simple fact that, you would have loved to see him fight. Not only, he finally got the Errol fight, but you would like to see him fight, let's say, the Danny Garcias and all of those guys when they were all in their prime, so to speak. You would love to see that. But the politics of boxing took away over that. But not taking anything away from Bud Crawford, I think this guy is on another level, and he pulls that off against Canelo. It's hard to not say he's probably one of the greatest fighters to lace him up.
Just a little pivot from that. March 1st, we talked about this off camera, and maybe we're going to see Gervonta Tank Davis, one of the faces of boxing. I used this comparison the other day. I sort of feel like this guy is at that stage now where he can fight anyone, and it's an event. There's a turnout at some part of the world. Lamont Roach, obviously stepping up in weight. tall task ahead of him, but he's a skilled fighter. You've spent a lot of time around Tank, seeing you've interviewed him quite a bit. What is this fight for him? Is this another fight? Is this a genuine threat in front of him? What's this fight for him in his career?
No, I think, look, Gervonta is at the point now where he can pick and choose who he wants to fight. Listen, he wanted to fight Lomachenko. Lomachenko felt like, hey, look, I want to take time off. I still want to contemplate on whether I take some time off and come back, or if I'm going to retire. So, Tank wanted to fight, and he had to find somebody. I think Lamont Roach was a guy who said, hey, look, I want to come up and fight you. We fought in the amateurs twice. We know each other. Even though I fight at 130, I can come up to 135. That's nothing for me. And so, I think it'll be a competitive fight because, he's a tough kid. He's a champion at 130. So I think it'll be a tough fight. But I just think, Gervonta is one of those special fighters. Sometimes I don't think we give him his boxing IQ. Yeah. And that to me, that's what separates him from some of these guys.
So I had a chat with Shakur a few weeks ago in London, and again the other day. And whenever I talk to anybody, a Dan Raphael or even people at our side in the UK, we're seeing a lot of these big fights get made now. But when I ask and say, what are the fights you want to see? It's Gervonta Davis and Shakur Stevenson. And for me, that is it. Especially in this country, this is a mega event. And I almost feel like when you talk about the two of them, although we just started on Tank, when you look at Tank, I think everybody sees the highlight knockouts, the blistering power. And it is, like, if you don't belong in there with him, you find out pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But the traps he sets, the boxing IQ, I feel like that almost goes overlooked in all the sort of brutality in the finishes. And same with Shakur, I think people forget that he ran through Oscar Valdez. He didn't just tip-tap around him. I think as well, like, people underestimate that he's actually quite a sharp puncher. Mm-hmm. But people focus on the IQ, the movement. So how big a fight is that from your standpoint? Well, eventually, and do you think we will see it? I know he said he's gone in 12 months. Yeah. I hope that's not the case, but do you think we see it?
I do. I think, when you talk to Gervonta, he even said, I'm focused on Lamont Roach, but after that, I don't want anyone except top fighters. And if that's Shakur, then let's make the fight. And I think it's now on, the politics of boxing to make it happen. And I think it's the fight that everybody wants to see Gervonta and Shakur. While they're both relatively young, in their prime, there's no excuses. I think it would be a phenomenal fight because, I think Shakur wants to show people, I got punching power. Y'all think I'm just this slick defensive fighter. I can punch. And I think if you're, Tank wants to show people, too, that, besides those powerful paws he's got, that he can move, too. And I think the animosity between those two,
build-up.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I want to ask you, he said, look, in 12 months, I want to be out of this. And when he says that, look, I know fighters, you see them over there say, I'm gone. I look at him and I think he genuinely means I want to get out of the spotlight, I want to move away and sort of desensitize. Yeah. But the fighting's in his blood at the end of the day. You can see that this is him. He is him kind of thing. Yeah. Do you think this is going to be an extended period? Or do you think in 12 months, no matter what happens, he may go, I've done?
No, I think Gervonta is going to have this fight right in Barclays Center, and I would probably say we would see him again towards the end of the year, whether it be September, November. You will see him right back in that ring because this is what it is. But he needs, after this fight, a little time to get away. Mm-hmm. But trust me, I think at the end of the year, and I do believe that at the end of the year, it would probably be a mega fight. I do.
I hope so. Look, I've taken up a bit of your time. I really appreciate you talking to us. Looking forward to this fight tomorrow night. It is absolutely massive. If you've not seen it, get to know it. The Benavidez, Morel, 50-50, both of them putting it on the line. Hopefully, if you're around, we catch up after the fight. I appreciate it.
My friend, listen, I want to come back. I want to come over the pond and go check you guys out.
You need to.
It's been so long since we've been there. But this is the one thing I love about England. Y'all live, breathe the sport. And I think that's what makes it so great.
I appreciate the kind words. We'll catch up soon.